Hi, my name is JD, and today we're going to be going over the controversial topic of where tone comes from, especially in the guitar world. So, what I'm going to do is this is going to be a multiple part series if I get the time. It could end up taking a whole year, it could take 6 months. If I get time, it might be less, but there's no way I can go over everything in one video because we are going to have to do some tests and we're going to have to hopefully collaborate with each other to try and figure out where tone comes from or what really matters, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think there's a lot of people being tribalist, and I think there's a lot of, like I said, just general misconceptions. Now, whether that's through their fault or being ignorant or just not knowing, there is a difference. So what I'm going to do is, this is just going to be an overview. The part one is going to be an overview of some of the things I'm going to go over and basically my perceptions or what I think where tone comes from. So I'm going to start with, I've just got some notes on screen there. Number one, but what I believe is that every single bit of the signal chain makes a difference. Now, whether that is 1%, 0.01%, 50%, 99.9%. I do think that everything in the signal chain makes a difference. And I'll go over that in a bit and just explain why I think that. And obviously I'll try and do some tests in future videos to try and prove my hypothesis. Is that what you'd say? So the first thing we need to do is figure out tone, the actual definition of tone. So I had a quick look, and tone is defined as any sound considered with reference to its quality, pitch, strength, or source. So obviously, the quality of the tone, the sound, the music, the pitch of it, so whether it's high, low pitch, the frequencies of it, I suppose you could say. The strength would be the volume, I would suggest, in guitar tones, so whether it makes something louder or quieter. And the actual source, I would have assumed, is what we're going to go through is all the materials, the guitar, amps, cabs, basically things like that. So the next point is, I just want to go over some traditional sayings or myths, as you would say, of what people say. So we've got tone is in the hands. Now, me personally, I think when people say tone is in their hands, what I think of is what they're trying to say is that, like, I don't know, say Eddie Van Halen sounds like Eddie Van Halen, nobody else sounds like him because it's his tone, it's his hands. Same as I downpick quite hard. A lot of people don't downpick as quite as hard as me. So I honestly think I sound like me. I mean, you might get people who could sound like me, but same with Hetfield. There's basically any guitarist you can say the tone in the hands, I think, is mentioning the person, the actual person, as regards to the whole signal chain. Tone wood, obviously, quite self-explanatory. The tone wood, the different types of wood for the guitars, do they make a difference? I'm not even going to go into that one just yet. But anyway, pickups, like Glenn Fricker said, pickups don't matter. So do the different types of pickups and sounds and materials. I've already done a pickup video. You can check that out. And they do make a difference to a certain extent. The sound in the room, that's one thing. I'm a big believer of the sound in the room. And that Jim Little has just done a video basically saying that, like, all the tones that you've ever listened to or you've wanted have never been in the room, they've been a recorded sound, which I 100% agree with that. By the way, you should check out all these other people's videos, like Jim Little and Glenn Fricker's, because the only way, I'll come on to this in the next point, but the only way we're all going to get through this is if we all come together and stop bitching and just start coming up with scientific studies and answers and opinions and everything. Basically, let's do a big scale study on where does it come from? And then we'll finally know, he says. But, yeah, what was I up to? In the room. I do believe that when I'm playing guitar here, it sounds different in the room than it does on the recorded. Now, could be because I'm listening through speakers, which are in a small room. You're listening to the microphone, which is on the actual speaker. Two different sounds. I mean, I'm here. I am not next to my ear is not next to the cab where the mic is positioned. If it was, and my ears were going through that preamp, it might sound the same, but it doesn't. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. Valves versus solid state. Once again, I'm going to try and go through some of the misconceptions of valves versus solid states, because at the end of the day, if you take another industry, so even like music amplifiers, so if you've got this debate about people say that the valves are better, you get all the rich and warmth and stuff like that, but I suppose in the audiophile environments, they want the cleanest sound possible, and I'm assuming that from my experience, solid state is cleaner than valves. Valves do tend to dirty up the sound. But anyway, I'm not getting into any of these arguments yet. We can go through this in the upcoming videos. What else have we heard? Different brand of valves. Brands, not getting into that, but there's another thing that we've heard. Different valve types, so 6L6, EL84, 34, KT88. You've all heard the KT88 bigger valves, they sound beefier, they've got more low end, more headroom. Like I say, I'm not getting into any of this yet. I'm just going over some of the things that people say. Effects loops. I've heard, I think it was AC Morgan. I think, don't quote me, but I don't think some of his amps have effects loops because he thinks they make them sound shit, putting an effects loop in the signal chain. Whether that's true, don't know. Output transformers, that's another one. I've heard people say the original Soldanos had these special output transformers and that's why they sound so good. Whether that's true, I do not know. We've got new strings versus old strings. Yeah, heard that one before. And what else? Yeah, we're going to try and find out and see what is actually true. So, next on my words of wisdom here are just basically, I want people to be nice in the comments. I don't think there's any point in saying, oh, this doesn't matter, you're wrong and all this, because, now I don't want to signal out Glenn here, but Glenn Fricker he's got a way of conveying his opinions, and in my opinion, I think he's just being a dick. There's a better way to do it. What's his name again? Jim Little. I mean, he comes across as a bit sarcastic, but at least he's being I'm not going to say honest, but he's being nice about it. He's not being biased, he's just giving his opinion, and that's it. I mean, I think Glenn Fricker's probably a nice guy, but he just seems to be like being the kind of point in the room, ha ha, I told you were wrong. And I just don't think it's helpful. I've been listening to this podcast, Lex Friedman, with Tim Urban, I think it is, and he was talking about echo chambers versus Idea Labs. And the idea, I think, that I've got from it is that echo chambers, they're almost like you're in a group, everyone's in that group, everyone's there for the same reason, and you're all kind of just justifying each other. Almost like a circle jerk, as Circle of Tone would say. And I don't think it's good. I mean, I'm just going to give some examples now, and I'm not shitting on any of these groups because I get why they do it. I mean, you've got to do something. But back in the day, I used to be in the Kemper group, and if you mentioned any other products, now I get it, it's a Kemper group, you don't want people coming and saying, this is shit. But it was almost a case of, we are the Kemper, this is all about Kemper, if you've got anything else to say, say it somewhere else. And then you end up with a Kemper group full of people who have Kempers, who only talk about Kempers. And then you have a Line 6 group who only talk about Line 6s. And then you have a Fractal group that just talk about the Axe Effect group. And you end up with all these people who are generally just want good guitar tones, who are guitarists. And they're all different teams. It's like a football team. You've got all these different supporters who are all there to watch football. But you want your team to win, you want my team to win. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be like that Tim Urban says, it should be like an Idea Labs. You should have somewhere where, if you're in a Kemper group and say the Quad Cortex has got something like, I don't know, like say the Helix has got the scribble strips or something, maybe discuss it. If you want that, let's maybe try and get Kemper to put that into their unit. Maybe it needs people to say, this is a really good thing about the Helix. I think we should implement this into the Kemper. It would make it better. It's not going to detract away from anything that the Kemper's doing. It's just going to add features to the Kemper and make it better for what the people wanted. And I'm not just shitting on Kemper here because, like I say, you go in any of these groups and they're just always talking shit about other people. And then the other one is the Tone X. I mean, I'm not saying it's crap, but you've probably all seen that meme of the Line 6 being saying, the Line 6 being, and everyone's saying, oh, it's better than amps. 10 years later, you've got the Kemper, oh, it's better than amps. And I'm just sick and tired of this Tone X now, oh, it's the best thing. I mean, Glenn Fricker's just, I hate to keep mentioning these same people, but obviously there's a lot of people who watch the same channels. We're all in the same circle here. We watch Fluff, Ola, Carl Ball, Glenn Fricker. Now, I know Glenn Fricker's a studio-based channel, and he keeps reminding people that, oh, we're a studio-based channel. But in reality, I'm going to say about 90% of his audience is probably just like me, amateur guitarists or amateur musicians who are just entertained by his videos and want to gain a bit of knowledge. I've lost where I'm up to now. I'm chatting that much shit. But anyway, I think we should just be nicer to each other and try and come up with better ways to show people, because at the end of the day, we all just want to make music. And at the end of the day, there's more than one way to make it. I mean, today, I've just started seeing a couple of videos coming out about the Headrush Prime, and I just know that in about 2 days' time, you're going to have all these people saying, this is the best thing ever, Kemper Killer and all this crap. And it's just fucking advertisements. It's just people getting paid to say things are nice when really they should be honest and just say, look, it probably is a good unit, but what is the point of buying it if you've got someone else? I mean, Glenn was on about the Axe Effect, saying, why would you buy the Axe Effects when the Tone X is out? And I'm like, well, who gives a fuck? Let them buy it. If you want to buy an Axe Effects, you go and buy an Axe Effects. Make good sounds. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. Anyway, I'm going to move on because otherwise I'll just be ranting and raving. The next thing is anecdotal evidence. So, yeah, we kind of need a collective on this. We need a lot more information, a lot more tests. So that Jim Lill has done a lot of tests, and I think he's probably the pioneer at the moment on YouTube. He's the one who's pushing forward the evolution of where this tone comes from, and I think he's doing a good job. Now, I do think some of his tests are a bit, nonsensical, I would say, because in some instances, especially tone, you need to look at the whole thing. You can't just play a clean guitar tone through a pickup, change the height, and expect to see this 60% difference. When in reality, from what I'm experiencing, if the pickup is only going to affect the tone by 5% of the whole guitar tone, then the pickup height by its own nature, can only affect the tone by probably 0.5%, because surely the pickup materials, the windings, the output, and all that, within that 5% is going to make more of a difference than the height. So putting a clean tone through it and then moving the pickup up and down, you're going to get this 0.5%, maybe not even that, it could be 0.25% of a difference. But then to just go and say, well, it's not made this big of a difference, so it doesn't affect it that much. Well, no, it doesn't. But it's 0.25% of 100%. And if you have loads of different things, which I'm actually going to go through, not all of them, but this is what I'm trying to say. There's probably over 100, there could be even 200 things that go into making the signal chain of an amp. And if every one of them is 0.5%, then you only need so many of them to make up 20, 30, 40, 50% of the sound. But you can't just do an isolated test and expect, high results. So, so let's go through some of the things that I think that are in the signal chain that I think that do actually affect the tone. So, first of all, the person. You've got many things of the person. Your ears. Everyone's ears are different. You could probably do like a test, a frequency test. I don't think I can hear past like 16. I think it could have even been 15,000 or 15,500 hertz. We've got this little app on my phone that me and my lad do, and I test his hearing. It's just basically like a sine wave noise, and I can't hear past 15,500. So anything after that, you could take all that off, and I wouldn't hear any difference, perceived difference anyway. But that's another thing we'll go into. But so ears. So obviously age related. I think the older you are, the less high end you start to hear. I remember reading something. Did I read it about? I don't know if it was Beethoven or Bach or whatever. One of them who recorded. It might have been Adam Neely's video. They recorded a piece of music, and by the time he'd finished it, it was half a step down, because apparently the older you get, your ears change. I think Rick Beato did a video on that anyway. So these things, they do affect how you perceive sounds. Now, whether that's right or wrong, if it's half a step down and you're thinking it's an E and it's really an E flat, then obviously you're wrong. But if you're perceiving it, what are you supposed to do? If you think it's an E flat, then anyway. So we've got hands, whether you've got bitch hands, big hands, powerful hands, how hard you pick, whether you pick with your wrist or like Hetfield with the 2 fingers or 1 finger. So you've got the whole arm, wrist and everything. That's going to affect the tone. Like I said, I don't know what percent. We're going to try and find out. Then we've got the pick. We've got pick materials, pick shapes. I use the shark fin. At the moment I'm using the yellow ones because I want a bit thicker. I've always used the shark fins, and I tend to pick like on an angle. So the string, the pick actually hits the string like that rather than flat. So does that make a difference? Is it 0.001%? Is it 10%? Who knows? And then we've got different materials. So these are all plastic ones, but I think Brian May used like a 50p or something like that, or a penny. So a metal one. Does that make a difference? We'll find out. Then we've got strings. Once again, different strings, manufacturers, materials, thickness, newness. We'll go on to that. Next is pickups. We've got materials, the magnets that are in them, Alnico 2s, 5s. We've got the height, we've got the output, we've got the position, whether it's positioned there, is it positioned there, or where you hit the string. Do you hit it here? Do you hit it there? Play up here? What else have you got? Yeah, windings inside, whether they're overwound, the gauge. Then we've got I'm going to put all these in one group, but the pots, the wiring, the volume, the tone knob, The quality of the components, I think you can have some bleed resistors or something like that over them. I'm not too technical on that side of it, but we'll just classify as the wiring of the guitar. Does all that have an effect on tone? Bridge types. So I always like the Evertunes, and some people seem to think that they deaden the sound. I don't know. You've got Tune-o-matics, Floyd Rose. You've got like I don't know what you class the Fender ones as, but do they change the sound? We've got nuts, different materials. I know Gordon Smith uses like a brass nut. This is probably, well, this one's probably plastic. But what's the other one that they use? It's like a graphite or a Graphtec nut or something like that. Does that make a difference, or is that just purely aesthetics? What else have we got? Oh, tuners, the brand, locking tuners, different types, different ratios. Do that make a difference? Then we've got, obviously, tone wood. Different types of wood, different thickness of bodies, different shapes, different scale lengths, different necks. Excuse me, I can't stop burping. I do apologise. What else have we got? Strings, harmony strings. So you play a 6 string tuned to E or 7 string tuned to B. Does that make a difference? It's a thicker 7 string, but you're just playing the bottom 6 strings. Who knows? Then we've got cables. So I'm going to include patch cables, guitar cables, speaker cables. Now I know, or I've heard, that length makes a difference, eh? But I think if you go over a certain amount of meters, you start losing a bit of high end or a bit of quality. But does it make a difference? We're going to find out. What else have we got? The amp type. Now this is so many things on an amp. I don't know how people can say that, oh, speakers 70% of your tone. When you have literally, there's amps out there. I mean, most of them are single channel amps, but if you've got an amp that's got bass, middle, treble, presence, resonance, and then you've got gain 1, gain 2, mid-shift switches which adjust the mid-frequency cuts or boosts, I just don't see how that can't make more of a difference than the cab. But anyway, you've got the actual amp, then you've got the type, which is valve, solid state, or digital. Preamp sections, I've just got the Synergy module. So what's the difference in a Synergy module with a different power amp? So you could use a Mesa power amp, or you can run it into a Marshall power amp. Does that make a difference? If it does, how much of a difference does it make? Let's see this next bit. Oh, that's just controls. Effects loop. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that some manufacturers don't put them in, because, in fact, the Fryer Deliverance hasn't got one. Now, I don't know whether he didn't put that in because of sound quality, or he just didn't put it in. But I'm pretty sure I remember seeing one of them. It could have been, it might not have been Morgan, it might have been divided by 13, but one of them, I remember watching an interview and he said he doesn't believe in putting effects loops because they make the amp sound worse. But anyway, the position of the effects loop, the type of effects loop, you got series, parallel. Some amps like Mesa have got solid state rectification and tube rectification. Not exactly know what that is, but it's on there. It might make a difference. Otherwise, why would you put it on? I mean, why would Mesa Boogie put a switch to switch them? Well, I don't know. They've got a lot of fucking switches messing, aren't they? Power, actual electricity, 240 versus 120, 110 volts. Using a Variac. You've all heard the stories of Eddie Van Halen using a Variac to get that sponginess. I've never used a Variac, so I don't know if it makes a difference or not. Then you've got speaker types. Yeah, you've got the material. Have I missed some of there? Yeah, I think I've missed one of them there. One of them missed here. Cab. Yeah, so you've got the cab. You've got the materials, the size of the cab, 2x12s, 1x12s. That Jim Little has done a video on that, which was really good. And then you've got the speaker, whether they're front mounted or rear mounted. I remember people were on about I don't know if it was the Dietzel or the Fryer. Some of them are front mounted. I don't know if it makes a difference. V30s, Glenn's done a video and he reckons that the newer V30s sound better than the old V30s. So not only have we now got actual speakers, different manufacturers and brands and sizes. I mean, most guitar speakers are 12-inch, I think. But now we've got different versions of the same speaker that sound different. I mean, you've all heard the video of Nolly and even Josh Middleton say that these 2000s V30s sound better than the newer ones. So where are we to get all these tones from if we can't get year 2000s V30s? So who knows how much that much of a difference makes. I mean, I did watch that video and they did sound better. So what percentage is that? Next one is microphones. You've got microphone position, you've got microphone types. So you've got, my brain's gone, dynamic, condenser, ribbon. So you've got all these variables on just the microphone itself. An SM57 does not sound like a Neumann TLM 102. They're different type of microphones, they come out with different sounds. So the microphone itself must have a certain percentage that it changes the tone of what you actually hear. Then you've got position, and then you've even got, I mean, Adam Steele did a video of SM57 clones. So you've got all these microphones that supposedly sound like SM57s, and they all sound slightly different because they're just clones, different quality, different price points, but they all sound slightly different. So they're changing the sound, whether it be 0.5% or 1%, it's still changing the sound. And then you've got two microphones. I always use two microphones, SM57 and a Neumann on that side, and SM57 and a VR1 on that side. So not only have you got having two microphones making a sound, you've got to blend them. I use a Behringer mixer to blend them. Now, who knows if you could buy a better mixer? You're just adding something else into the equation. You're just adding another thing into the recipe that's going to change it. Now, whether it makes a difference, I don't know. But I blend them at a certain level. So I'd say the SM57 is slightly more prominent than it's probably like 80-20. It could be 70-30 to the SM57. Excuse me. I don't know, because they're just knobs. I'll try and put a picture on screen, but they're just... Anyway, so we've got the mixing of the microphones that makes a sound. Then we've got the microphone preamps. Now, I actually run my microphones into a Warm Audio WA73, which is basically a Neve 1073 clone style preamp, mic preamp. That will change the sound. It's got an EQ on it, but that'll just change the sound rather than going in the UA Apollo, my audio interface. I honestly can't tell the difference if I just, without the EQ of it just going in the Apollo or the WA73. But with the EQ on it, it now adds more, more differences that you can change. This has got mid cuts, high cuts, and low cuts, and boosts. It's got a tone button as well. Don't know what that does, but adds more tone. But that's another thing that's in the signal chain that is going to affect the tone. And what else have we got? Oh yeah, you've got SSL ones. I know SSL do a mic pre, which I think is more clean, or supposedly clean, rather than being, what's the word? I can't think of the word now, but the Warm Audio, the 1073 puts like a, I can't think of the word. It's not clean. It colours the sound a bit. That's the one. Anyway, next one, we've got the actual mix. So whoever's mixing this, you would not believe that if you just put an EQ up, take out 10 dB of 4K, and it'll change the sound completely. So all the songs you've heard, they've all been mixed either through software or more likely through actual analog gear. You can never recreate that, and you probably can't recreate the fine tunings that, I mean, you could recreate it, but if I do a song and I've cut at 100 hertz and I've cut off at 10k and I've done some notches at 1k, 4k, maybe 250 hertz. You're not going to know that. You're just listening. I mean, you could probably run it through a frequency thing, but even the graphs, they're not going to tell you what I've done. And plus, you're hearing it in a mix. So it's going to be very hard to try and figure out what the mix engineer's done. And that goes for the mastering engineer who's added compression and all this kind of crap. The room, the hotly contended The Room, In the Room sound. Now, how much that makes a difference, I don't know. But what I do know is that if you go on any of these channels for recording, whether it be what are they called now? URM Academy, or no, what's his name? I can't. Warren Hewitt, or Glenn Frickers. Everyone says that you should get your room treated. So my thinking, now I don't know this, but my thinking is, why do you need to get your room treated? I think it's because you're not hearing all the frequencies, or from what I've heard, bass collects at the back. That's why you need bass traps. And you need the ideal triangle position for listening to. So if you need all this to properly hear what you're listening to, then surely you need that for guitar sounds as well. Because if you haven't got that, then you're not hearing the guitar tone. Does that make sense? I'm asking people now, honestly, I'm not taking the piss or anything like that. If I need to put bass traps in the back of the room and I need to sit in this triangle with my speakers to hear all these instruments, I mean, most of mine's just drums and guitar, to hear them properly, then surely to really hear that guitar sound, I need all this as well, which I haven't got. I haven't got bass traps, or that you see them with the traps above your head, or it's to stop reflections and stuff. But anyway, surely if you need it for mixing, then why don't you need it to hear the true guitar tone? And then obviously once it's all been recorded and you're listening through Spotify, and I'm not even going to use I think that Jim Little pointed out in the end, people say that like Spotify and YouTube compresses it. It does. I just don't think it matters that much. I mean, if you give a normal person an MP3 and a WAV file, depending on what you're listening to it through, I don't think they can tell the difference, honestly. If you were listening to on a high-end system, they probably would. But maybe on a phone, no, they're not going to hear the difference. And this is the general thing anyway. Most people listen to music on a phone, so they can't hear anything anyway. You can't hear... On your phone, I'm pretty sure you can't hear anything under like 50 hertz or 60 hertz anyway. So most people are listening to music on the phone. It's even harder to try and, pick out sounds on a shitty system. And I will say this. When I watched Glenn Fricker's video on, what was it called now? He did a solid state orange versus his Soldano, his PV and all that. And I will say that when I watched it, I listened to it downstairs on my telly, because I watch all my YouTube on my telly. And I couldn't tell the difference. Honestly, couldn't tell it. I couldn't even tell you on that telly where the changes was. And then he put out his videos saying where they were. And then I thought, I'll come upstairs and I'll listen to it. And I could actually hear, on my studio monitors, I could hear where they changed. I couldn't tell you which one was which. I'm not saying, I fucking knew all along. I didn't. But I could hear in here now where they changed. I couldn't tell you the differences, but I could hear where they changed. And that just goes to show, I'm wondering how many people are watching with studio monitors in a proper setup with bass traps and all these reflection things to stop. How many people are actually listening to it through that? So how many people are going to guess? And the last thing before we go, because it's been, oh my god, has it been 34 minutes? Jesus Christ, it has as well. I've been chatting shit. I do apologise. But the last thing I want to say is, I think the only way to truly find tone is you do need some form of amp switcher as well, which I will say I don't think they had in the past. And I've heard Friedman and Fryer and all these people have actually said this. The only way to A/B something is to get an amp switcher, because within 3 seconds your mind will lie to you. So yeah, we need an amp switcher. So anyway, this is part 1. It's been on for 35 minutes. If you've watched all this, thank you, because I have just been chatting for 35 minutes. So in the next part, I'm going to go through some of the things, and it might not all be my experiments. I might use other people's things, like the pickup video. I think Michael Nielsen did a video because he was going to change the pickups. So we can draw from other people's experiments and use them to try and find out where tone comes from. Anyway, I've been chatting. It's 36 minutes, so I'll see you in part 2. I don't know when it's going to be. It could be a couple of weeks. It might be tomorrow. But it won't be tomorrow. But it could be a couple of weeks. But anyway, I will do another video. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.